Hi, what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Emily Swall here with us today. Got a lot of good things going. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
You got it. So let's talk about SEAL Team right now.
All right.
Because this is a good place to start. We're here at CBS. SEAL Team's had a nice little run. What has it been like playing Dr. Pierce on this show?
It's really cool. This is definitely one of those times when I get to play a character that feels so much cooler than I am in real life. Because she shows up with this group of, I mean, these guys are like the ultimate alpha males.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And she comes in, she's just like, nothing phases her. And I love that she very often is like one of the smartest people in the room, but she doesn't need anyone else to know that. She has this steadiness that I try to borrow from her. And she goes toe-to-toe with that guy very easily, which is really fun because David's just a phenomenal actor to work with.
You've worked with a lot of great people. What's it like working with him specifically?
Well, I love that he comes in with so many ideas and so deeply invested in the character, and he wants to collaborate. Right. It's not like, because you never know when you're going into a show that's already established and you know these people have been playing these characters for a while, you don't know like how much they're going to kind of keep to what they've been doing and how much they're going to want to see what you have to bring to the table. And he's just been so collaborative, and we have a lot of fun, and we wind up ad-libbing a lot, and it's a really, I never know what to expect in the best possible way. That's
the way it should go down. I mean, you're spending so much time on set, and so for somebody like you, you've done all these different shows in your career, you don't know how it's going to go when you're just jumping into this show, when it's seasons into it, you know? And the fact that you're able to make an impact, have a good rapport, like that makes life much easier for you.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's, I mean, every time I go in and do like a guest star on a show, I say it feels like the first day of school. And I feel like with something like this, it's like you're a transfer student. Like everyone else, you know, has all the books, they know all the teachers, they know what's going on, and you come in and you're trying to like catch up and act like you've been there for a while and just not fall on your face, basically.
Well, that fits really well with this because it's like tight group of guys, like you're coming in from a different place, like and especially studying like the psychology of what these guys are going through. Like, what was the most fascinating part of that for you?
Well, just, I mean, taking the time to think about what that constant adrenaline and fight or flight response, what kind of impact that would have on a person. I mean, these SEALs go through incredible training, and yet, even though they are prepared for every single situation, still when they walk into the situation, they don't know what it's going to be. And having to make those decisions day after day for years at a time, like, I feel like I could not possibly imagine that. And so it's also important, I think, in addition to, and this is one of the other things I love about Natalie, she knows a lot about like the science and you know how all of this impacts them, but she also understands that like what's going on up here is a whole different thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to nail somebody like Natalie? Like, how much time do you spend with her before you're like, I have a good comfort zone here with her?
It varies. I mean, I think maybe my audition for SEAL Team, after the first audition, I did have a chemistry read with David, and there were moments in there where I really felt like, oh, I get her, because I was able to see what he was coming with and find those points of connection. But then the first episode I shot was actually, I think, the fourth that she appears in, so that was kind of weird to try to think about.
That is really
like,
weird. Yeah.
I wonder how it will have developed until now. And I would say it took like 3 or 4 episodes before I was really like, okay, now I feel like I can respond like more on instinct instead of having to like remember who she is. And that's really enjoyable when that starts to happen.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. Like, I don't think enough people understand that like you guys don't shoot everything in sequence all the time. Like, you know, you can get there and this can be the final scene after the whole episode's built out, and you got to be in that moment right there. So how do you pull that off? Like, how do you deal with that?
A lot of faith.
You got to have it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I try to look at what I know has happened before and imagine like, okay, I think this is how I would feel by the time I get to here, and here's what I know, and here's what I don't know. But sometimes I don't even have that information. Like when I shot the first episode for SEAL Team, I didn't have scripts for the first 3 leading up to that. And so it really was kind of an act of faith that it, and a lot of it also was just going off of what, I trust David so much, and he put so much thought into those things. So some of it was very easy and just responding to him and trusting that. But I do find I started acting in theater, and I find acting for film and TV to be so much more an act of faith, because I don't know like what edit is going to get used.
You have no clue. Yeah. Whereas you're on the stage, it's just that one shot.
Yeah.
You're doing it. You're interacting with the audience. You're doing 10 different shots here, and you're like, all right, well, 9 of them were great in my mind, but the last one I was like, it's okay. And then sometimes I'm sure that's the one that gets chosen.
Yeah. Or there's like a moment where I knew I had like some great reaction, and then in the edit, they're not even on me, so it doesn't matter.
And you're like, thanks, guys. You're like, I worked so hard to get that.
I'm like, you guys trust me. I look really great in that.
Do you still do theater, or have you just
I do, yeah.
Okay, so how often are you doing theater?
I do at least one play a year. Last year I got to do 2, and one of them was a play with Tom Hanks.
Oh, wow.
Henry IV, parts 1 and 2.
That's right, yeah.
It was out in LA, yeah.
What was the coolest part of that experience?
Oh my gosh. Watching him work and watching, I mean, he truly is, of course he's phenomenally talented, but he also has the gift of just being able to like truly be present with everyone in a room and make everybody feel important, because he's genuinely interested.
Right.
And I think one of the biggest things I learned watching him, because he was playing a really daunting role, and ultimately like had a fat suit, and he's like the comic relief in the show, and it's Shakespeare, so there's a lot to figure out.
Absolutely.
And he didn't have any sense of worry. It wasn't like he came in and he was like, yeah, I got this. Like, you knew he was working on it, and you could see him trying things and discarding choices and trying different things, but there wasn't ever any worry about it. And that seems like kind of a small thing, but I realize it's actually huge, because I think we, most of us, I would venture to say, work really hard as actors. I don't think there's that many people that don't. I think
no,
they
not
don't
many
work.
people are just mailing it in.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I like want everyone else to know that I'm working really hard and I'm trying really hard, but that extra energy isn't always helpful. And so to see somebody just like, you knew he was working hard, you knew he didn't have all the answers, but he wasn't worried. And that sort of set the stage for everybody else to say like, okay, I'm going to step into this sandbox and I'm just going to try some stuff. And I think it raised the level of everybody's work, and it made it so much fun. And there were a number of nights actually where we had to stop the show for various reasons.
Really?
And the like ad libs that started to happen on those nights were just some of my favorite moments.
Had that ever happened to you before, that the show had to stop multiple times?
Yeah, sometimes there's a health issue out in the audience, and so you have to hold. And it's kind of a weird thing, because it's, you want to register that something has happened, because something has happened.
But at the same time, you can't.
Yeah.
You have to keep going, keep doing it. And it's not like TV or film work, it's just, you can cut it and
you
start
can't just
again.
pretend nothing happened.
So you're
like,
literally
everybody
just
witnessed
waiting.
It. Yeah.
But especially on something like that, it's nice to have that stabilizing, calming presence to be like, guys, it's gonna be totally fine.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, if somebody gets sick, if the lights go out, like, we're good.
We're gonna be okay, yeah.
Definitely. So who are some other people like that you've encountered that it's just like really calming presence, or I learned a ton from this person? Who pops to mind?
Fred Molina, definitely. He was one of the leads on, I guess the first series I ever did. It was a show called Monday Mornings. We did one season on TNT. It was David E. Kelley and Sanjay Gupta.
Okay.
And it was Alfred Molina, Bill Irwin, Ving Rhames, Jamie Bamber, Saryu Blue. It was just a phenomenal group of actors, and a lot of them had theater backgrounds too. And Fred also, I would see, he was the chief of staff at this hospital, and we'd have these scenes where like he was just delivering page upon page upon page of dialogue. And he just had this, there were times when he just completely went up on his lines. But there was never that moment of like, oh, crap, I don't know, He was just like, he would sort of pause. Sometimes it would come to him, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes something hilarious would come out of his mouth. But like, he didn't waste the time, I think, getting embarrassed about it.
You just roll with it.
Yeah. And that was really cool to see. And that was also a show where everybody just brought so many great ideas. Working with Bill Irwin, who I've admired all my life, was incredible. And I have been really lucky to work with a lot of really talented people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It really is. So when you think about your career, like, TV is a really fascinating industry, especially with what's going on now. When you think about a show that you thought would be big, but it didn't hit as big as you thought it would, what comes to mind?
Monday Mornings, definitely.
Monday Mornings? Yeah, it seems like that had a good squad of people there.
Oh my gosh, it was a great cast, and I think it was really good. Yeah, it was sort of a weird thing, and I think there's so many unknowns even when you have a great story, the timing and the network that it's on, especially now when there's so much content and there's so many ways to see things. Some of it's just dumb luck as to what actually gets seen.
Totally.
But yeah, that was one of them. I've actually, speaking of theater, I was in 2 musicals here in New York that were on worst of the year lists. Yes. And I like to talk about them because they both had Pulitzer Prize winners involved. I did the musical High Fidelity that ran for not even a month.
Real quick, right?
Yeah. And that was David Lindsay-Abaire, who I think while we were rehearsing won the Pulitzer for Rabbit Hole.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then I did a musical that John Patrick Shanley wrote and directed in Manhattan Theater Club. And both of those were on the worst shows of the year list. But I feel like it's so important to remember that to be a genius, you also have to risk having something that maybe doesn't work as well.
You're going to fail along the way.
Yeah. I had a great time working on all of those.
Yeah, and you can still talk about it and look back on it. It's a part of the journey. And you're going to have some great opportunities and some ones that kind of suck. And so on the flip side, what have been some ones that have hit in a bigger way than you anticipated?
Supernatural had a much bigger impact than I would have thought.
That whole world is just kind of really intense.
And I went into season 11, so I didn't know who was gonna see it, but that character, the Darkness, just getting to say that I played the Darkness is pretty cool.
Pretty sweet, yeah.
And then when people are like, "What? Who is that?"
Yeah, don't worry about it.
God's sister, no big deal. The impact that show has had on my career and seeing how much it, how huge that fan network is something that I had no idea about going into it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's, it continues. I was just in Germany last weekend for a music festival that takes place basically because of the Supernatural fans.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I get to, because my way into performing was singing. I grew up in the church choir and then I did musicals, and I don't get to do it as much anymore. And bizarrely, because of Supernatural and doing these fan conventions, and because there just happened to be a huge number of crazy talented musicians that have done the show, I've gotten to record on albums and do concerts, and
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that to happen.
Not at all. And I get to say I'm the Darkness and smite people and stuff. Yeah.
Why don't we talk about The Mandalorian, because that's really exciting. Obviously, Disney Plus is first.
What, you're interested in that?
I am interested in that. There seems to be some people that want to talk about it. So Disney's getting into TV in a big way for the first time.
Yeah.
So you've been on a lot of sets. What did you take away from this experience?
Oh my gosh, it was... Well, first of all, I have to say, going into it, I didn't know quite what it was. When I was auditioning, I didn't know it was... My agent said, "We think this is something to do with Star Wars,"
right.
but
You're great, it's another gig, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, which was good, because I think if I'd known going into it, what a big thing it was, I would have been crazy nervous.
Hyping it up a little bit too much.
Yeah. And my audition was very low-key. I was just, in the room with a casting associate. I didn't meet any of the people until I got to set. And so in that way, I was able to just approach it like I would anything else. But from the moment I got to set, actually before I got to set, from the moment I went in for my first costume fitting,
That's
because
when you
it took them a while to build that thing, I was like,
sure.
Wait, what? I'm going to look like that?
I get to rock that? You're like, yep.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And seeing how much time it took them to build it and seeing how excited they were about it. And that was one of the things that struck me the most, because I haven't been a part of that many big budget flashy things, but I feel like sometimes there might be a little bit of the pressure of all of that, this is going to be huge. It could make people a little cranky maybe. And there was none of that. Everybody was so excited to be a part of it. And it felt like every single person, and this is just such a testament to Jon Favreau and the way that he assembled this team, every single person was just bringing their heart to it. And it felt like, we were kind of like kids at the playground, and we're getting to play Star Wars.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and there was so many. Also, one of the first days that I was on set, George Lucas came to visit.
Oh wow, what was that like?
It was. I truly just stood there dumbfounded because he was, standing there holding court and telling all these stories. And I took a moment and I thought, like, what must it be like to be him, to have created this universe back in the 70s, to have made these movies that were huge and remain huge, and now to see that people still love this story and this world so much that they want more of it. And now with like all of the technological innovations that are brought to it, which are all really, really cool, but I think ultimately like why we still care about it is because of the heart of the story.
No question.
Because of that like hero's quest.
But it's still amazing that it keeps going all these decades later.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Good deal. Emily, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Check her out on SEAL Team, The Mandalorian. For Emily, I'm DJ. See you next time here on The Sit Down.